All right. So, House, a couple days ago, I was talking to Zach Lowe because he had returned to the States. And we were saying how boring this NBA summer was, that nothing had happened, that it was the driest NBA summer we had had this entire decade. We had really no international basketball. We had no Olympics. We had no bubble basketball. Just nothing. And then all of a sudden the Balmer thing happens. Pablo Torre, who was on this podcast a couple weeks ago, I can't remember how many.
The journalist Pablo Torre.
Yeah, he journalisted it up.
He sure did.
This was a great story by him.
The shit out of this. Great job.
He really did. Good job by him. This crazy story about Steve Balmer and this company that, what was it called? Aspiration? I never even heard of this company. It was a big Clipper sponsor. Balmer had invested in it. And there was money being spent on Kawhi Leonard services that he was not really rendering. And it was just a lot of...
He had the option to render services. I guess he declined to render.
It was a lot of breadcrumbs. It was a whole heaping cup of breadcrumbs. And it confirmed at least the story. We'll find out if it's true or not because the NBA is going to investigate. I'm not saying the reporting wasn't true. I'm saying the actual... did Balmer actually launder money through this thing to pay Kawhi Leonard, which is what the NBA is going to investigate. It confirmed a lot of stuff that we've always felt was going on, both anecdotally and whisper stuff. And just, this is a whole world of the NBA that they would rather we didn't talk about. I've talked about it anecdotally on my podcast a few times about star players being allowed to use the team plane for their own purposes, or being allowed to stay at, an owner's beach place for 2 weeks with a bunch of their friends. Like, there's a lot of nooks and crannies in the CBAs, and the league just does this. They're like, we don't want to know. We don't want to know.
You and I won't name names because this podcast is too popular. I felt like I could get away with it in some other form, so I did name names. But things like, couple big star players landing in a city where you really have a hard time figuring out what the attraction was for those two players, but looks like might be some investment vehicles, maybe outside of the United States of America, where
there's some wink investment stuff. You always hear that.
An inside, sight line of sight on some investments in foreign jurisdiction. Teams that figure out a way. There's some star players with documentaries, and who knows, where the economics go with that kind of thing. It's just that kind of stuff out
all
there.
All kinds of businesses. There's a lot of ways to do this, and this was always like with Tom Brady and Kraft with the Patriots for the last basically 10 years, with TB12 running, and having a whole facility right next to Gillette Stadium, and there was always people wondering. And look, I think any league is going to be like, we kind of don't want to know unless you force us to try to have to find out what we should know. In this case, the Clippers came out pretty aggressively saying, especially from a Balmer standpoint, that this was not true. And they, I thought what Cuban said was interesting, and it backed up something that I thought. Because I read all this stuff and, the way it was all laid out, it was pretty damning that there was more than a smoking gun here. This was so sloppy that it almost makes me think, I kind of just can't believe everything I know about Balmer, how shrewd of a businessman he is, how thoughtful he is about everything. Like even how they did the Intuit Dome, every piece of that place, he put so much thought into. And I just think he's like a really on it guy. He's not like a cut corners old billionaire who just fucking does whatever. He's really on it. And all of this that was laid out was the sloppiest shit I've ever seen. And I'm just like, I just can't believe he was this dumb. That's kind of where I've landed. And maybe he was this dumb.
So if we want to,
but I can't believe he was this dumb.
Yeah. So the way to get to where we are right now and trying to answer the Balmer question is, do you really think that what was the investment that he made? Wasn't it the investment in this business?
I don't want to go. We don't need to go in the nitty-gritty.
It just wasn't enough money for it to necessarily be something that he, his own self, is sitting down and looking at the investment thesis. Now, I'm not suggesting that he didn't do his diligence, but he entrusts quite a bit to a whole cadre of people in his support system. And this could be one where somebody in his support system said, I see a pathway for this investment here. And, by the way, now I'm not suggesting anything necessarily nefarious out of his investment team and connecting the dot with Kawhi. That could have come later. But this thing was attracting celebrities. They were trying all kinds of celebrities. Look at the list of creditors. The Boston Red Sox are a creditor. Like whoever the brain trust was behind this Ponzi scheme, those people had access to big swinging dicks. And I'm not suggesting anything about Balmer himself missing here. To me, the plausible explanation is his investment team was swayed. They saw that the other investors were other teams, other celebrities, that kind of thing. Not that dissimilar from the crypto thing that turned out to be a fraud with all of the.
Well, and that's another thing. The crypto and the Bitcoin is another way to take care of people, and you wouldn't even know it happened.
Interesting.
It's the sleazy side of the league, and it's existed for a long time. And it's always been whispered about and talked about in all these different ways. And this is one of those where it's like, see, this shit does happen. But you really have to believe Balmer, who is a super smart guy, just completely fell asleep at the wheel. And maybe he did. My reaction was like, wow, this is some of the dumbest shit I have ever seen if this is true. Like because what's going to happen is they'll probably, the contract will maybe be nullified. Who knows? But they'll be fined at least as much as the Joe Smith thing. They'll lose at least 4 to 5 first-round picks.
Maybe
they'll be fined.
Maybe worse, 50, right?
Because the other problem is the other owners are pissed,
right?
Because they got him at a slightly less than market value,
right?
And then the other piece of this was kind of discussed at the time. I remember talking about it on my podcast, but everybody heard about Kawhi's Uncle Dennis.
Oh yeah.
That had his hand out that whole free agency and to every team that talked, and was kind of unlike any other person that any team had to deal with. So, and then there was somebody reported about how the Toronto owner had said how this guy tried to make me arrange all this money. So it's just a mess. And I'm sure Adam Silver got through the summer. It was like, this has been great, man. We figured out this EuroLeague thing. We squashed this LeBron Maverick Saudi thing.
We have a hard salary cap.
We've put in a hard salary cap. Matt Ishbia seems like he's starting to be competent. I got $4.25 billion for freaking Portland. Like we're expansion's not happening anymore because we're all making so much money. We're doing great. What a great summer. I'm just going to relax this week, but these next couple weeks, I'm just going to be somewhere tropical or in the sun or in some beach house. And then this comes down with Balmer, an owner that everybody likes.
Mm-hmm.
So
an innovator.
I have no idea what's going to happen.
An innovator. Yeah.
But Pablo's team, because Pablo has a staff.
Yeah.
They broke this shit down. They found documents. Like they just did an awesome job.
They did.
And I don't know how it plays out. This episode is brought to you by HubSpot. Did you know most businesses only use 20% of their data? Wow. That's like leaving most of your playoff roster on the bench. Come on. We're making just 1/5 of your shots. Point is, it's going to be pretty hard to win unless you have HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business. The insights trapped in emails, call logs, transcripts, because when you know more, you grow more. Visit HubSpot.com today. If you had to bet, does this lead to like a Joe Smith type situation? Or is there some sort of explanation? If I gave you those two choices, there's some sort of explanation that gets them out of this, or it's going to be more like we are slapping your hand really, really hard with a bamboo stick.
There's no explanation that gets them out of this. They are going to be punished. I think there is an explanation. I think that Balmer will be sufficiently distanced. I do think the most plausible explanation to me is somebody and his investment team found this thing, was persuaded, let's put in the chunk of money that they put in. And then somebody said, oh, look, they're doing celebrities. Kawhi, hey, look, man, you could get in on this. This is going to be an easy gig for you. And Balmer is going to have sufficient sort of prophylactic, there'll be layers, right? You won't find communications.
A diaphragm?
You won't find direct communications. Balmer's like, please tell Kawhi that he can get $30 million free dollars if he agrees to sign up with this dumb Ponzi scheme. Tree farm, whatever nonsense.
Well, one of the weird things was this was 2 years after his initial deal.
Right.
So it doesn't tie in the 2019 piece. And then the other thing that, like, if you're going to say that this actually did happen, it's so much money to give to Kawhi Leonard. If it was like $5 million,
like
I'd be like, all right, yeah, this was a Ponzi scheme. These guys were idiots. It was $28 million.
That's
and then there was
money.
a report today that it might have been even more than that in stock. Like another 20 million. So then when you see that, you're like, man, this looks bleak for Balmer. Like, I think he's going to have to come out pretty hard if this isn't true.
Well, it's
he's
true.
Gonna have to.
It happened.
No, I know,
definitely
but
invested the money, and Kawhi definitely got the contract and definitely got money from it. And I think that's enough. For the league's perspective, who cares what the explanation is? It happened. Balmer put his money in it, and Kawhi got money out of it.
If he didn't know anything about this and there's some sort of accident or whatever.
It's not an accident.
He's got to come out really hard and be like, look, this was not an end around to give Kawhi Leonard more money. I swear on my kids' lives, like whatever. You have to go hard to try to prove that this is true, because this is going to haunt him for the rest of his career as an owner. It is.
Well, who was it? Glenn Taylor? He's the one that ran the
Glenn Taylor's a terrible owner. This guy owns the Clippers. He's trying to fight the Lakers in LA. And by the way, the Lakers can't stand the Clippers. They couldn't be happier about this. So, and the funniest thing of all this is, guess where the All-Star Game is going to be this year? The epicenter of the NBA.
Holy
the Intuit Dome.
Wow, that's awesome.
You coming? Should I get the Frosé ready?
Immediately. Yes, I'm in. I'm all the way in. We'll just be recovering from the Super Bowl.